So yes, we are back in the games room, and it's been well over a year since last time I did a video on the sort of console side of stuff. And it's not that I've not been picking up games for these systems, it's just I've really cut down and been more targeted and selective on the games that I've been picking up. Especially after the cull of 23, where I got rid of a lot of games I knew I was never going to get around to play, a lot of RPGs, a lot of stuff that I didn't have that much love or interest for. And as a bit of an incentive, I thought to myself, okay, with some of the funds put towards games you truly love, some of the systems you love. So like I wanted to finish off the Neo Geo, the PC Engine, and get those shooters on some of the systems like Mega Drive and Saturn and SNES that I didn't have. So it really allowed me to get some of these games that were far out of reach, but now, yeah, I could treat myself. So when it came to the PC Engine, there's only maybe 3 or 4 shooters that I needed to get for the system, and there was about 40 to 50 sort of playable games that I had on the list. And I thought to myself, okay, let's finish up the PC Engine. So about a year ago, it was all done and dusted. There's only 1 or 2 games I still want to get for the system, 1 or 2 that aren't actually big hitters either. So once I get those, I'm truly done with the PC Engine. Done in the sense of collecting only, because I absolutely love this system. Always been fascinated ever since I've seen pictures of Nipper in computer video games. Seeing those huge colourful sprites really captured my imagination, stuck with me. So when I got back into sort of collecting the console side of things, it's one of the first systems I picked up. And because I was in Singapore, the games are a little bit more easy for me to get, and of course from shipping and tax wise, Singapore was a great place to collect for the system. And yeah, it was happy days exploring the system and getting to play these games I never got to experience as a kid. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the games I picked up, and hopefully there's a couple in there that interest you. You may want to go and play yourself, and some games you might want to avoid. First up, we got Fushigi no Yumi no Alice, or Alice in Wonderland. This was released on HuCard, and not to be confused with the other Alice in Wonderland game, which was Namco's arcade port of Marching Maze. This was actually released by Face. Now they did a couple of great games, things like Metal Stoker, which is one of my favourites, and also the Honey series. This is a cool little platformer game, very simple. Your normal sort of mechanics of just running and jumping on enemies' heads, and you've got a bit of magic to fire as well, which you can sort of charge up as a super shot. Visually, the game is an absolute treat. It's very colourful, you've got some beautifully drawn sprites. While it doesn't necessarily follow the textbook Alice in Wonderland storyline, it still has that same sort of feel, that sort of dream or drug-induced state that fits quite well. They have taken a little bit of a liberty with some of the enemies. Some of them you'll recognise, but some of them they're clearly just made up. The levels do tend to be a little bit on the short side, but you are treated to a pretty good boss battle at the end of it. Some interesting characters there, with fairly simple patterns to pick up on, but a lot of fun, especially with the way the actual character moves and plays. Very responsive, maybe a little bit floaty for some, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. I definitely recommend this one. My only gripe is the sort of frustrating respawning of enemies, especially when you fall down ladders, but definitely give this a go. Next up is Builderland. This was released on the Super CD, and as soon as I started to play this one, I realised it had to be an Amiga game. It absolutely reeked of the Amiga. Maybe people don't realise, but there's quite a lot of Amiga ports on the PC Engine. Most of them are terrible, like Gym Power and that stupid Baby Jojo game. This one is not too bad, to be honest with you. It's one of these guardian angel games where you sort of protect your little character on the screen who's constantly walking to the right, and you just manipulate the environment around him to get him to the end goal. It's kind of a tricky little puzzle game. It's not as easy as it looks, and luckily you can pause the game. You can pause your little character while you sort of work out what to do and how to move with the environment. Visually, the game is not one of the best looking games on the system. It's a little bit on the ugly side, and also the soundtrack as well. At the beginning it's a little bit cheerful and fun, but it will soon annoy the crap out of you. It's just too repetitive. Well, I did kind of enjoy the game at the beginning, but I lost interest pretty quickly. It's just a little bit too slow paced and too focused on the puzzles rather than having that sort of fun factor. If you like this kind of games, for me, I want to go more arcadey. I'm talking Tetris Plus, I'm talking about the Guzman or Oyo series. They're amazing, I love them. That's what it should be. Fast paced, thinking on your feet, keep the little dude alive. Not my type of game, but it could be yours. Give it a go if you think it interests you. Next up, we got Cheeky Cheeky Boys or Mega Twins. NSC Avenue released this on the Super CD, and they did an amazing job converting it from the classic Capcom arcade game. Very similar to the Mega Drive version, but there's some notable differences too. One thing I gotta point out is I actually use the analog duo to actually record the footage for these games, and straight away I notice it doesn't play as well on the duo as it does in actual hardware. It's much slower. You can tell by the jumps it seems a bit sluggish. I don't know what that is, if there's a known bug. I did later on, when I was playing the games, I did upgrade the software. Maybe that's fixed it. I need to go back and check. This is your classic arcade action platformer where you slash and jump and even climb up walls to get to the end of the level, where you then face a suitably themed end of level boss. On the PC Engine version, you actually can do a bit of co-op similar to the arcade, where you can get a second player to come along for the ride and play as the other twin. The graphics are absolutely stunning, and each level is just unique and introduces nice new enemies and different themes. It's an absolute joy to behold, especially if you can get a buddy to go along for the ride as well. They give you plenty of credits, and it's not too difficult as well, so you will get pretty far. Differences between the PC Engine and the Mega Drive versions. Well, of course the co-op is missing. On the Mega Drive version you get to choose between the different characters, but you don't get the co-op gameplay. And it's more of a regional thing, I think, but the girls as well that you rescue and give you little kisses to encourage you, they're also removed, but that could be a region censorship thing. They could still be on the Japanese version of Cheeky Cheeky Boys. Of course, it did enhance the sound as well, being CD, but me personally, I do tend to enjoy chip tunes rather than the enhanced CD sounds, but that's just me. But anyway, they're great ports no matter what you play it on. And certainly if you want co-op, the PC Engine is the version for you. Either way, this is a fantastic game. However you want to play it, just give it a go, you'll enjoy it. Next up is Cross Viber Cyber Fighting Police. This is another Hue card by Face, and strange enough, this one is completely in English. I'm not sure if this got released in the States or not, but yeah, the backstory is there in English, and that's kind of rare really for a lot of these Japanese games. Yes, the menus tend to be in English, but the backstory tends to elude you, and if you're like me, you sort of, rather than Google Translate, you just make up your own story. This is your classic sort of keep going right and fight, sort of vigilante style of game where you keep on punching and kicking your way until you eventually meet the end of level boss. It definitely feels very similar to Fist of the North Star, or was it Last Battle on the Genesis. It's a very simple game, but it does what it does very, very well. Graphically, it's a good looking game, maybe because it's done a little bit more parallel scrolling in the background, but apart from that, it looks pretty decent. And it's very fast paced as well. You do feel very responsive to your character, and you do get plenty of enemies that do come at you thick and fast. But I've got to say, it's a little bit on the difficult side, so it can get a little bit frustrating. You're supposed to get powered up as you go along, and eventually you'll end up with a big mega suit. But I can tell you now, I never got that far. I would say it's a little bit above average game for the system, definitely worth a try at least. Next up is Double Dragon 2: The Revenge. After being completely scarred by the horrific Double Dragon 3 arcade game, it's nice to go back and actually play a decent Double Dragon game. And this one is not based off the arcade version. So the Mega Drive was a port of the arcade version. This is its own kind of game. I think it's more loosely based off the NES version. In fact, I think it's a kind of a hybrid between the two versions. You definitely need to get to grips with the controls when you play this game. It is a little bit confusing at the beginning. The way it works is you've got one button for punch and one for kick, but it really depends which way you're facing on what they do. For example, if you're going to the right and you're facing your opponent, then the button on the right will be the punch and the one on the left will be the kick. And if you're facing the other direction again and you're facing the opponent on the left hand side, then the left button will be the punch and the right button will be the kick. And if you hold them both together, then you do your jump, and if you do direction, do a jump kick. But the other one as well you need to know is the typhoon attack or the spinning attack. When you want to get out of trouble, then you hold both buttons down as well and go up. Because they released it on a CD, then you've got a lot of additional cutscenes that you put in. I don't think they put too much effort into it. They're a little bit low quality, but they're there anyway. Like other Double Dragon games, it can be a little bit frustrating if you're knocked off the edge of the screen, but at the same time it's a double-edged sword because it is satisfying to do a flying kick and knock your enemies right off the edge of buildings. This is definitely one of the better Double Dragon games, and I highly recommend you check it out. Next up is Murteki Tamago, or Bomberman with Ducks. This was kind of released by Naxa on the Super CD, and what I mean by kind of, this was actually a bit of a freebie. It was given away with a magazine. I believe it wasn't quite finished, they had many delays, and it was really the end of the life of the PC Engine, and they just gave it away as a sort of demo disc. And it's actually a cracking good game, no pun intended. As you can tell, it's kind of like a Bomberman arena game, but rather than trying to kill your opponent outright, you need to actually get a higher score. And to do that, you go around collecting little eggs, and if you keep them long enough, they'll actually hatch into little chicks, which need to go to your little home base. Now the idea of the game is to sort of hinder your opponent while trying to collect these eggs, and you pick up different power-ups that sort of convert you into like a flaming bird, or you speed up, or you can also drop little fried eggs where you can sort of block the path to the home. So it's all about little shenanigans to dirty tricks to get the highest score. Not quite worked out how the scoring works. I keep on losing just about. So there's many components to the actual game, but if you got this on multiplayer, this looks like an absolutely belting game. It's fun enough just on one player, but you get 4 people playing this, it's going to be a right laugh. The game did get fully released and actually put out on the Sega Saturn. Next up is Eternal City. This was released by Naxa on HuCard, and it's very much a side-scrolling adventure sort of shooting game, very much in the vein of something like Metroid, but a little bit less platformy and more shooty. The idea is to traverse the levels, shooting the enemies, and exploring, looking for the upgrade areas where you can power up, and then you can go on to take on the end level boss. Once you actually obtain the power-ups, you do need to activate them. So for that, you do need to use a select button to then go into a menu. A little bit of Japanese there, not too much. It's not rocket science. You'll soon work out how to activate things like a backpack, or your gun upgrades, or even energy as well. So if you're low in health, you can suddenly stop and use a select button and activate a sort of health pack. I've got to admit, the actual levels themselves aren't that particularly impressive. Graphically, they do look a little bit bland at times, but the actual character and the enemy designs are absolutely top notch. The cool cybernetic character designs are no surprise once you realise the involvement of Japanese manga artist Masuma Shiro. Of course, he did stuff like Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell. But I do have to warn you, it is a little bit of a slow burner at the start. You do find it a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, but as soon as you find those upgrades, especially that jetpack, you'll soon be zooming around the level, shooting enemies, having a lot more fun. Luckily as well, there's also a password system as well, so you can get back to where you last played. I definitely recommend you give this game a go, especially if you're an OG Metroid fan. Next up, we've got some Lemmings. So this was published by Sunsoft, the same company that also published the Mega Drive version. In fact, it's almost identical as far as I remember, but of course this came out on Super CD, so the tunes are much better on this version. This is one time where I would say I prefer the CD soundtrack than having chip tunes. It's just a hell of a lot better. And the other thing as well, it supports a mouse as well. And just so happened, I did pick up a mouse around the same time, so it's all good there. Yes, I know the Mega Drive does have a mouse as well, but I think only Lemmings 2 is supported, not the first one. But anyway, I got to play this how you should do with the mouse. But as for recording purposes, I did use the Analog Duo, and I hate to gripe on that machine. It's a fantastic system, but I don't think the mouse is particularly working well on that. Yes, I know that it says it's supported, but I couldn't get it work when I was doing the recording of the video. So maybe there's a bug there, or maybe I just couldn't find the settings properly. Of course, there's better ways to play this game, like the Amiga, but it's still a pretty good version, and I'm happy with it. Next up is Mesopotamia, or Summer Assault. This quirky little game was released by Atlas on HuCard, and probably the best way to describe it is it's a slinky shooter. Definitely a very unique concept, but at the end of the day, it is just a maze game really. The idea is to get from the start to the finish in a very limited amount of time. At the end point, you'll have an end of level boss there waiting for you to fight. Along the way, you're going to find all sorts of obstacles, whether it's environmental sort of death blocks or little dead ends that are going to waste your time. And of course, you've got those enemies intent on taking you out or slowing you down. But you find your biggest enemy will actually be time itself. They don't give very much of it. But what they do give is some power-ups, so you can actually upgrade your weapon to a multi-shot, or you can even get things like shield or speed-ups. But be careful, not all the pickups are actually beneficial. There's a rainbow one there, that you get that, it will actually reverse your controls and confuse the hell out of you. As you can see from the footage, each of the levels and end of level boss are based on zodiac signs. And one of the cool features of the game is at the beginning of the game you put in your zodiac sign, and what that means is when you get to that level, the end of level boss will actually fire upgrades rather than bullets. So a little bit of a trick if you're struggling with a level, choose that as your zodiac sign and it will help you. Highly recommend this game, you gotta check it out. Next up, Motorola 2. First, Motorola has got a bit of a bad reputation of being a crap game, and probably rightly so too. So going into this, I did fear for the worst. And I definitely struggled with this one right at the beginning of the game. I was constantly losing, I was underpowered, but then I stuck with it. I learned my lessons of F1 Dream. Someone commented that you need to push through, you need to get through the early stages of the game, and the game will open up a little bit. And likewise with this one, and the secret is upgrade your car as soon as possible. You need that edge, otherwise you will just trail behind all the other vehicles and you will never win. So as soon as you can, upgrade the wheels or the engines, make sure you spend all that money. Don't hoard the money, spend it on your car, and then you'll be able to compete properly, and it's actually not too bad. I do like the addition of the other categories of vehicles to choose from, like the tank and the hovercraft. Each of those you can also upgrade along the way as well. So that's added value to the game. Also, there is a weapon system in there, but I didn't tend to pay too much attention to it, as I just wanted to be ahead of all the other vehicles and stay there. Definitely there is fun to be had with this game, especially if you like things like micro machines. Give it a go. Next up is Spin Pair. This was released on HuCard, and it's a cool little puzzle game, very addictive, Very much in the vein of something like Puyo Puyo, but it has an additional sort of mechanics to it that make it a little bit different. The goal of the game is to collect a certain number of the different items that are displayed on the left hand side of the screen. To do that, you need to make them whole or they drop down. Unlike Puyo Puyo, where you just want to get the colours together and they will automatically chain, here you've kind of only got half of an item. So you want to get all the colours together, but then one item you want to rotate and make sure it lands perfectly on top of another to form a whole, so the colour becomes all the same. It will then chain and then you'll get your item collected. The gameplay is extremely addictive and fun, and the gameplay soon ramps up in difficulty as well, because after each level they do increase the number of different items that you need to collect. This is one you definitely want to check out, especially if you like your puzzle games. Next up is Star Mobile, that was released by Nexact, and it is a CD-ROM game. This is another puzzle game, but unlike Spin Pair, this one I really did not enjoy. The concept is super simple. You want to catch these falling little stars on your scales, and you've got to catch a predetermined number of them, and you've only got 6 places on the scales to actually place them, so you need to arrange it quite carefully, and each one of these stars actually weighs slightly different. So you've got a little scale on the bottom that sort of indicates what weight they are. So the blue is the lightest, the dark red is the heaviest. You get bonus points if you land the same colour stars on top of each other, and you just want to basically catch them and balance out your scales until you collected all the stars you need to collect without having them tipping. That's basically it. Not a lot to it and not particularly enjoyable. The CD music's not too bad and kind of relaxing, so it may appeal to some people, but it's just a little bit boring for me. But yeah, maybe someone out there likes this and wants to give it a go. Next up is Supari Dai Sumo. This is another Nexact cue card, and it was originally actually developed by Techno, and it's got a feeling it's on multiple systems. I think it's definitely on the Famicom, and it's probably also on the Super Famicom as well. This one I definitely struggled with. Started out quite well. I managed to design my sumo, got him ready for fighting, but when it came to the arena, I got absolutely battered. Couldn't figure out the controls at all. I tried random button mashing or timing with the slaps, but I believe it's some sort of combination of the two. Couldn't quite figure it out. Even tried to look online, I couldn't find too much information how to play this one. So if anyone knows how to play this game, please leave in the comments what the hell you're supposed to do. I just ended up dying time and time again. Some really nice animation. You either get flung out the screen or crushed in the ground. Fantastic stuff. It looks kind of fun, it really does. So especially if you've got 2-player on this as well, it looks like it could be a really good time. But unfortunately, I haven't got a clue what to do. I definitely recommend you get the ROM and load it up and just check out the game and see what it's all about. See if you can figure it out, and maybe there's a good game in there. Next up is Travel Eple. Now I'm guessing that's the pronunciation. I'm going off the Norwegian translation, as we have a bit of a snowy theme going on here. So I believe it's Travel Apple. It's basically a Norwegian version of the movie Battle Royale, rather than having school kids in school uniforms. They're dressed up in penguin suits, and they're running around battering each other with fish or baseball bats or bombs or grenades or anything else they can get their hands on. The game is actually a hell of a lot of fun. It plays really well, and also the icy settings as well, with all the little ice tracks that either speed you up or slow you down. It makes it a lot of fun. A little bit difficult to control at the beginning, and you don't want to get cornered because you get stuck and it's battered to death. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the other PC Engine game, the TV show, but this one is a lot better and a lot more fun. Yeah, I definitely recommend this one. You need to play this one and check it out. Next up, we've got a bit of Fill-In Cafe, and we've got Galaxy Detective Gavan. Yep, the Japanese do choose some great names for their games. I'm sure Galaxy Detective Gavin was probably what they were after. But it's a game by Fill-In Cafe, so they can call it whatever they like. I'm a big fan of Fill-In Cafe. I love the Mad Stalker games, also the Asuka series, and of course Panzer Bandit as well. This is a classic old school beat 'em up with beautifully drawn sprites, and they did mix up the gameplay a little bit by giving you this sort of cyber suits that you can transform into at will, but you have to use it sparingly because it has a certain amount of power. You can pick up powers along the way, along with health, but you need to choose your moments when to transform. This is another game where you get absolutely battered until you learn all the controls. So you need to block, so to do that you need to crouch, and also the uppercut to effectively take out enemies, which is up and punch. Also, if you get into trouble and surrounded by enemies, you can do a bit of a spinning attack, but it's very hard to pull off. You've got to sort of rotate the joypad, probably a lot easier to pull off with a joystick. And to top it off, you've got some cool little boss battles at the end of each level. Overall, this is a pretty decent game, but it's definitely a tough one to get into. Definitely recommend you give this one a go. Last but not least, we got something a little bit special. We have got Gunhead Special Version. Wanted to at least get one shooter in the video, and I also wanted to end on a high. So what better way than have this absolute belting classic from Hudson and Compile. And I thought I'm not going to do cut footage, I'm just going to actually do a 2-minute caravan run. And so you can actually check out my run here. Maybe you want to do a score yourself and let me know how you get on. So Gunhead was chosen for the 5th Hudson Caravan Festival. It's a series of festivals that started in '85, and basically it started off on Famicom, so there's a bit of a challenge, and the first one was Star Force, followed by Star Soldier, and then Hector 87. These are all classics, and if you're interested in playing those games, there's also a Super Famicom version as well. There's a collection of these games. Definitely check this one out. The 4th one was actually a baseball game. It was a PC Engine game as well. It was Power League, and this was, of course, the 5th game in the series. These summer caravan events were super popular in Japan, and even Naxxon got in on the action as well. They had their own little festival, or carnival as they called it. And of course there's some PC Engine games there. So 92 they had Alzadik, and 93 was Nexar, an absolute classic. If you like these caravan shooters, another one I would recommend is one that Hudson Soft gave away on one of their demo discs, and that is Psycho Rider. Definitely look out for that one. It was included on the Anna Fantasy Stories demo disc, but I'm sure you'll find the ROM pretty easily. I'm not sure if these Hue cards were actually given away to winners or whether they were just in the competition itself. No idea how many are actually being made. You do see them around, they're not that rare. It's just nice to have a little bit of history from these amazing events that happened quite a long time ago now. Makes me feel old. So that's my score. See if you can beat it. I'm sure you can, and I'm sure you're going to have fun. There you have it. That's the first batch of games from the PC Engine backlog. It's a bit of a long one, but there's a lot of games to get through. But I hope you got something out of it. Hope you enjoyed it. Maybe there's some games in there you've not seen before and want to try now. Maybe some games there you want to avoid. For the rest of the PC Engine games in the backlog, I'll probably make another 1 or 2 videos. I'm not going to cover all the games, just the ones that are a little bit interesting, a little bit different, that people might find interesting. And for the other systems, just see how much time I got rid of. I could make a video on the Mega Drive games, also Sega Saturn, there's enough there to make a video. And of course there's enough games there for the Super Famicom as well. Thank you again for making it to the end of the video. Really appreciate it, and I've got to somehow find some space for these games now. So, take it easy.